In front of me here, I have the new Lego Ideas Botanical Garden, and being a huge modular fan, I decided I wanted to see what this looks like next to other modular buildings, even before I modify the front of the set to make it more modular compatible. So just like we did last week with the new X-Mansion from X-Men, we are taking this set and putting it next to every Lego designed modular building that has ever been released to see which ones it looks best next to. And let me tell you, I was pretty surprised by what we found. Come on, I'll show you. We're going to start with some recent modulars, and with that, we'll kick off with the museum and the jazz club. And honestly, I think this is a fun little combination. Not too bad, especially with the museum. I like how it looks next to the olive green. Now, the jazz club, I'm not as big of a fan with because of all the dark red. I don't like that combination nearly as much. I'm giving you a little bit of a overhead shot here with the museum that I think shows off a little bit of that gap between the botanical garden and the other modular buildings, something I want to consider how to maybe modify in the future. But overall, I'm not too displeased with how this looks next to the two most recent modular buildings. But of course, there are some other recent ones, including the boutique hotel, and I've got this on the right-hand side and the brick bank on the left-hand side, because I want to see how it looks next to some corner buildings. And honestly, I like the way the boutique hotel looks with it on the right-hand side. The brick bank, not so much because of the laundromat on the left-hand side, but it's not terrible. I'm curious to see how the brick bank will look if I put it on the other side, but really a big fan of that boutique hotel on the right-hand side. This is what it looks like flipped right here, and I do like the brick bank. And you're going to find out that this is a little bit of a theme as we go through these combinations. There are a lot of buildings that I think look good on the right-hand side of the botanical garden, but not as much on the left-hand side. And I think the case here with the boutique hotel is that it looks better on the right-hand side because of the foliage, because of the big palm tree that it comes with it. And it's not quite as good here on the left-hand side. Again, not terrible. The sand green of the roof kind of mixes well with the windows, but it's not as good as I think the others on the other side. Now we've also got the Sanctum Sanctorum, which as far as I know is still available for purchase, and I gotta say this is not a good combination with the Sanctum Sanctorum on the left-hand side. Just that gap right there with the alleyway to the right of the Sanctum Sanctorum is just not a good fit, and gosh, I just don't like the corner garage on the right-hand side of most buildings. This gap on the Sanctum Sanctorum is one of the big flaws of the set, and I know that there are some tutorials and videos that will help you close off that gap if you want to, but I gotta say, this is not the combination for me. It is not something that I'm looking to combine in the city, just with those huge flat walls rising way up above the other side. And even if I flip them around, the Sanctum looks better on the right-hand side, but the corner garage here on the left, still not what I would want. And honestly, having a garage on the left-hand side of the botanical garden just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The Sanctum Sanctorum, not that bad, but honestly, looking at the set, it's not that great. I do like the sand green. I think we're catching a theme here that the sand green from other modular buildings may be a nice combination to pull out the sand green in the botanical gardens. More on that in a little bit. Now we're going to move on to some old school modulars, and we're going to show you, yes, going back to sand green, the green grocer. Now, I kind of like this combination. It's not my favorite, so spoiler alert, it's not going to be in my top list, but it is not too bad. I like the green grocer next to it with the sand green, the tan, the white, meshes pretty well with the botanical garden, but there's something about the height of these two buildings that really just doesn't fit well. And it's kind of odd fitting a botanical garden right there between a grocery store and a fire station. I don't know, just the bell tower on the fire station, the higher roof with the bay windows there on the green grocer, just not a fan of how that looks next to or around the botanical garden. But again, that sand green of the green grocer works really well. Looking at two other corner buildings like the Palace Cinema and the Grand Emporium, I'm gonna say not the biggest fan of this, although the Palace Cinema isn't too bad. The Grand Emporium, one of my least favorite modular buildings. I think it looks really good next to other buildings, but not so much the botanical garden. You can see with this video that we're showing, it's just not the right color scheme. The dark tan is better than the regular tan, I think, even though those colors do appear in the botanical garden. It doesn't draw out the same color combination as well as the sand green, in part because the minimal tan that you see in the botanical garden. Now, flipping them around, again, not terrible, but it's not something that I'm looking to keep in my possible layout combinations. Again, I like the Palace Cinema more than the Grand Emporium, even though they do have pretty similar color schemes. I just like the dark tan pops better against the white of the Botanical Garden than the regular tan of the Grand Emporium. One that I was really intrigued to look at is the bookshop and the Parisian restaurant, because the European architecture of these sets, I think, meshes really nicely with the Botanical Garden. Now, looking at the Parisian restaurant, it's got that French architecture, and olive green may not be the best combination, but I do love how the architecture works really well, although I'm not convinced with the Parisian restaurant on the right-hand side of the set. I do like the bookshop apartment next to it. I think it's a pretty good combination. Even if I flip the bookshop and the apartment around, it's still not too bad. But when I do this right here, yeah, flipping the Parisian restaurant to the left-hand side, that I think is a nice keeper. Look at this photo. You can see the stairway going up to the restaurant level, and then you've got a pretty nice vantage point over the Botanical Garden. It's not too high. There's a little bit of connection that goes between that eatery and the Botanical Garden. And even this photo with the gap, the heights work really well. On the right-hand side, putting the apartment isn't too bad. Again, not a huge fan of that right there, but I do like this combination, especially that Parisian restaurant. The bookshop is intriguing, at least the apartment is, and something I'm keeping in mind as I think about other potential combinations where this one might fall in. But right now, definitely thinking the Parisian restaurant on the left-hand side, which you'll notice is a tough combination to find for these sets. Now, a good example of this, the diner, I just don't think looks very good on the left-hand side. You can see here, it just has that towering jukebox look on the right-hand side. Even the assembly square is such a tall set, so big that it doesn't look very good even on the right-hand side. So I was able to honestly eliminate the assembly square from being on the right-hand side pretty quickly when I saw this particular combination. Even if I flip them around, you're still talking about assembly square not being very good. I think it's just too big, too domineering of a presence. But the diner on the right-hand side isn't too bad. The pink definitely pops out against the white. You've got a lot of white going on in that downtown diner. You can see a lot of these images with that little walkway and the steps up there. It's similar feel to the Parisian restaurant in you have that staircase going up to the second level. However, I will note that the diner just seems a little too modern, perhaps. This overhead view right here shows, I think, just how big the assembly square is compared to the Botanical Garden. Although the diner fits in a little bit nicer on the right-hand side, there is a lot of competition for buildings going on that side of the Botanical Garden. I do want to emphasize the connection point is hard to gauge here just because the Botanical Garden is not fully modularized. But I think we get a pretty good sense for how it looks next to these buildings, including some more old school ones like the detective's office and the pet shop. Now, I do kind of like the blues here next to the Botanical Garden. The pet shop, that sand blue pops really nicely. The building isn't too tall. For the detective's office, it's a little bit taller, but that very light blue and the light blue work really well. I kind of like this combination, if I'm being honest with you. If I switch the apartment and the pet shop around, it's not nearly as good. And if I put them on the other side, again, the detective's office, the medium nougat, doesn't work as well next to the Botanical Garden as the light blues of Al's barbershop. The pet shop does work well on the left-hand side, so that's maybe something to keep in mind because I don't have a lot of buildings that I really liked on that particular side. But this is, I think, a good overall sense for some of these older modular buildings that weren't as tall, what you might see with those, and the heights aren't too bad. Now, what about looking at some public spaces? We have a couple modulars like the police station and the town hall right here that can show you how it would look next to some bigger modulars. And I like this police station here. The sand green and the newsstand work really well on the left-hand side with a little bit more of the building recessed. And you'll notice from our combinations with the X Mansion, I like that combination. Similar with the X Mansion though, the Town Hall, guys, it's a hard modular to place in your city if you're wanting it to not just dominate everything next to it. And you can kind of tell the combination here with the police station is much better in my opinion with the sand green of that far right hand wing. And then once you get over to the Town Hall, it's just so big, so tall, and it just really obstructs, I think, the beauty of the botanical garden. Again though, I like this view right here from the right hand side of the police station, and of course not so much the Town Hall. When I switch them around, I think we lose a lot of that appeal from the police station. The Town Hall just doesn't look very good next to the botanical garden, whether it's the right side or the left side. But the police station, I think, even with that purple and the white, not quite as good as if you put the police station on the left-hand side. So far, I'm thinking the police station is a good combination. The Parisian restaurant on the left-hand side, that's a good combination. Maybe even the pet shop on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, so far, I'm thinking about the botanical garden, possibly the diner. So those are some of my options that I'm thinking about right now as we move into the next combination, which is taking the Spring Lantern Festival and placing it there. I was thinking about this in part because it does have some green space. It is, kind of lively in terms of the greenery, but I wasn't a fan of it there. And I put the cafe corner next to it because I love the cafe corner, but it's definitely not one that I would put next to the botanical garden. Just the dark color scheme doesn't work all that well. Here are some pictures of the Spring Lantern Festival and the connection point, because you might be able to put some sort of a walkway between the botanical garden and the Spring Lantern Festival. And it's a possibility, but I will note that this combination of the Spring Lantern Festival itself isn't all that great with the statue and the lamppost. You might have to do some modifications on that. And of course, just the cafe corner, I was not a big fan of it. Even flipping the cafe corner to the other side, still not all that great. The hotel sign, I think, gets in the way of looking at the tree and the beauty of the flower gardens on the left-hand side. Now, the Spring Lantern Festival, looking at it this way, is maybe a little bit better. The connection point here, you can see there are some flowers from the botanical garden that mesh up right up along the white wall of the Spring Lantern Festival. Definitely a possibility on the right-hand side. So I'm adding that to the list. I didn't like it as much as I thought that I would, but perhaps if we modified the Spring Lantern Festival a little bit, that might help. So which combination was our favorite? Well, honestly, it was so difficult we couldn't decide on just one. We went through a bunch of different combinations and a lot of us had different opinions. So I'm going to show you our top three, and you can consider them all tied for first. Favorite number one is the Parisian restaurant next to the botanical garden, which is then next to the brick bank. Now, this is one that came in at Autumn's favorite. She really liked how the Parisian restaurant, the color combination, and the staircase on the left-hand side looked, and we really all enjoyed the brick bank as a possibility. The sand green windows match very nicely with the botanical garden, the white color scheme. We even have a little bit of the light blay and some sand blue on the side of the brick bank. And I do think that the height isn't too bad for either of these two buildings, and that makes it a nice combination. Now, the other one that we liked, and this was Julia's favorite combination, and that is the police station with the boutique hotel. And again, I noted that on the left-hand side, I really like the police station because of that sand green wing and the recessed nature of it because of the newsstand. And on the right, the boutique hotel. Julia loves the boutique hotel, so that's one reason why this might work with it. But she loves that palm tree there, and it looks really, really nice with the heights. The sand green of that roof line for the boutique hotel, I think, really pops with that sand green in the botanical garden. Now, get ready for my next and final favorite. This one ended up being my favorite because, guys, guess what? I forgot about one of the modular compatible buildings, and that is the X Mansion. Check it out. I was looking at the X Mansion and how it looks like next to other modular buildings, and I had some pretty good combinations. This is my favorite, though. I love how the X Mansion isn't too big. It's got the length. It's not too tall. The color, the dark orange pops. I think there's a lot going for it. Even the greenery gives it a little bit more space, works really well with the botanical gardens, and that's why I just really like this building on the left more than any other combination. And on the right, to show you a little bit more detail with the boutique hotel, I will say, not a huge fan of being able to see that dumpster there. You can see through the gap, but you're not going to be seeing that too much if you're looking at it head on, and this might be a keeper combination. Maybe putting the brick bank on the right-hand side will be enough to really allow this botanical garden to breathe nicely. Which combination did you enjoy the most? Comment down below. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something, and maybe helped you consider whether or not you would get this particular set for your modular city. Again, thanks for watching, and always remember to keep building together.